It's definitely worth the investment in thinking into how we build our middle class and raise the incomes of Detroiters, because as we grow Detroit, as I mentioned in the State of the City, it means nothing if Detroiters don't have access to it.
Welcome to PathBreakers, a podcast from the Kresge Foundation. This season, we're asking, who has the power to change a city?
We're talking with people who are reshaping the way things work and getting into how they make that happen.
And we're looking at 4 cities in particular where Kresge does a lot of work: Memphis, New Orleans, Fresno, and of course our home city, Detroit, Michigan.
In each of these places, we're going to start at City Hall and talk with the mayor. Then we'll head out into the community and talk with some of the people Kresge calls PathBreakers, people making big changes in unconventional ways.
Hi, everybody. I'm Tracey Pearson. I work on the communications team here at the Kresge Foundation, and I'm a proud West Side native Detroiter.
And I'm Jamie Bennett. I work at the intersection of arts, culture, and equitable community development.
So, Jamie, in our exploration of these cities and the different kinds of change work happening there on the ground, we're starting with the person who is traditionally seen as the one calling all the shots in the city. That would be the mayor. And also, because the mayor holds such a unique position as the most prominent storyteller of the city, we're going to spend some time with them.
In the first 4 episodes of our season, we're of course going to focus on Detroit. Not only is it Kresge's hometown, but it's also a city that's had a lot of stories told about it. A lot of those stories with the headline, and Tracey, I'm going to use air quotes here, Detroit is having a comeback.
Detroit has been telling that same comeback story for almost a decade now, if not longer. And I know because I live here, I've seen it with my own eyes. And while there is real truth in that story, billions in investment, a revitalized downtown, a city that has quite literally clawed its way back from the largest municipal bankruptcy in American history. But if you drive 10 minutes in any direction from the center of that story, you'll find neighborhoods that have not had the same level of investment as downtown. Residents have been working hard, advocating, and looking for a new partner in City Hall.
Yep. And in November 2025, they got one. Detroit voters made a decisive choice about what comes next, and by the widest margin in the history of Detroit, they elected Mary Sheffield mayor. Mayor Sheffield was born and raised in Detroit. She's the daughter of a civil rights leader and a nursing professor. She was the youngest city council member in Detroit's history when she was 26 years old, and then went on to become its youngest city council president at 33. And now she is the first woman to serve as mayor of Detroit.
That's right. Madam Mayor Sheffield has been serving the city for a long time. She didn't run on a downtown comeback story either. She ran on the promise that neighborhoods will come first, that investment will reach every corner and every family. And so today, we're going to find out what that promise looks like.
And we're going to do that in person on the Marygrove Conservancy campus. Kresge is moving its headquarters to Marygrove, and so for this episode, we're doing a very dangerous thing, and we're handing our microphones over to Kresge President and CEO, Rip Rapson.
Go ahead and take it away, Rip.
Mayor Sheffield, thank you. What a pleasure and honor it is to have you here at Marygrove. I think one of the last times I saw you, you were transitioning just down the hall.
Yep.
It's a special place,
It is.
to Kresge, to the community, and to the city as a whole. But say a word about why would you end up putting a transition team here or feeling this is somehow a special place?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. Excited to be here. The entire campaign was rooted in how we can ensure that we're better supporting, elevating, promoting, and investing in our neighborhoods. And so to be in alignment with my values and vision as mayor, we just thought it was only right to root our transition in the heart of a neighborhood. And a neighborhood that, quite frankly, has undergone massive transformation. There's a lot of investment happening here. So I think it's really highlighting how a neighborhood can go from maybe disinvestment to strategic investment and really showcase a really thriving and growing neighborhood. So we were honored to be here in the community. So many people we brought throughout here, over 300 committee members were in and out, and it just really brought that energy and vibrancy into the neighborhoods, which is what we always want to do.
Well, it's such an anchoring presence in the neighborhood. When the Marygrove College was going through tough times and we were asked to step in, the thought of there not being this anchoring presence in the community was just unthinkable. And so I think one of the things that we've found over the last decade of investing is that it's not just a set of buildings on a campus. It's not just a beautiful grounds. It's sort of a nested reality with the rest of this extraordinary neighborhood. And we've kind of come to the view that you almost have to hold the web whole. You have to do housing, you have to do open space, you have to do education, you have to do transit, you have to do all things. And when I was thinking about that, I was thinking about your State of the City address, which is almost exactly what you said, which is you can't just sort of do single interventions and hope that everything is going to change. You have to kind of pull it all together. But that's the toughest kind of municipal change. Where do you get started on something like that?
You know, I think right now we're really building on the strength of some of the neighborhoods that have reached a level of resiliency and building on those, but also in areas where you need stabilization, right? So there's areas where they may not be ready for economic development, but the social issues, the basic quality of life issues will go a long way in those communities to build them up to a level of resiliency. And so simple things like clearing the backlog of sidewalk requests, right? Turning street lights on in areas where there's still a need for additional lighting, having community violence intervention groups go into those areas, really promoting workforce development. I mean, those type of tools to me are critical to basic quality of life issues in our neighborhoods. And so we're finding areas where we can start somewhere so that every neighborhood feels something. And understood, to your point, you know, there is different layers and levels of investment that are needed in several neighborhoods for it to thrive. But I think if we can figure out a way to provide some support in some of these neighborhoods, whether it's just stabilization tools, investing in people, everyone would feel as if they're receiving something.
Well, I think your trilogy of strengthen, support,
stabilize, strengthen, grow.
Which was exactly right. It's kind of people, places, and economic development.
Yes.
And the idea that somehow you can sort of differentiate a neighborhood based on what they need, I think is really smart. One of the themes that just sort of is so apparent from everything you've said, everything you've done, is that you want to make this city a city for children. Children and families, to be sure, but children. Talk a little bit about some of the thinking you've done about how to strengthen our appeal to kids and families.
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately in order for us to really grow our population and in order for us to, really thrive and go to the next level, Detroit has to be a place that centers youth voices. Youth are our future, and if we don't invest in them now, we do a disservice to all of us. And so we've been really trying to center youth and children in all that we do, really supporting families, ensuring that we have a program now called RX Kids that provides cash prescriptions to pregnant moms. And I believe when you take care of a family, you take care of generations, and you build neighborhoods, you build community. And so for us, this administration is just so important that we invest directly in neighborhoods and families as well.
Well, again, your State of the City, you talked a little bit about small things like giving every student of the public school system a bus pass, or structuring after school times, or making sure during the summer when kids don't maybe have quite enough to do, giving them kind of constructive outlets. It's a complicated undertaking. I think what was so impressive about what you laid out at the State of the City was sort of the range of the ambition, which I think a lot of us saw in the campaign, to be sure, but it was the depth, the fact that you've begun already sort of layering, not just 1 or 2 or 3 levels deep, but often 4 levels deep, to make sure that these kinds of strategies take. How do you think about sort of the basic challenges of resourcing and working with the private sector, working with the philanthropic sector? I mean, just making sure that everybody is sort of behind you and pushing in the same direction.
So we've been approaching it very delicately, and we really want to be strategic in our ask. So it's not, we just want this, and just throwing random requests out, but really making sure we have an overall goal and vision, and how every request is interconnected to the overall goal and theme of this administration. And so as we prepare to go before Philanthropy, we really want to ensure that we have a strategic request and ask about the direct needs that would benefit Detroiters. So we know that that is a real need. Detroit can only do so much. We had roughly over $800 million in federal funds that are now leaving at the end of this year. And so as we're leaning on the private sector and the philanthropic sector, we're also eagerly looking at ways to generate new revenue streams for the city of Detroit as well, but also getting back to supporting Detroiters, because when we support Detroiters, people stay here, they live here, we got to get people working. That generates revenue to the city of Detroit as well. So we're trying to be innovative in our approach, but really strategic in how we, approach the philanthropic sector for funding.
And when I go around the country, I almost always get questions about this sort of unusual ability that I think over the last 10 or 15 years, the city has evolved to make sure that the public sector sets the agenda, but then the private sector comes behind that and the philanthropic sector comes behind that. I think of the riverfront or the Wilson Park or the Greenway. I mean, there's so many examples. And my sense is that by being so thoughtful about how you've sort of laid out your priority set, it's going to make that easier. It's almost like reverse engineering, saying, here's the sort of the problem set we're kind of coming at. And so private sector, you can maybe do this piece, and philanthropic sector, you can do that piece. It's exciting. I can't wait for the ask.
Good. I'll remember this. I'll make sure I have this clip here.
Well, we are extraordinarily fortunate in Detroit to have so many extraordinary foundations. And I think one of the nice things is if you want to do solar installation, you might come to Kresge, but if you want to do water reclamation, you might go to Herb, or you might do open space with Wilson. I mean, it's an extraordinarily diverse community. One of the things that sort of threads through both your neighborhood approach and your approach to kids and families is the notion of just building wealth, building economic stability, building economic mobility. Not just something at the very front end with our ex-kids, but homeownership, home repair, small business development, retail attraction, all of those things. I mean, those are often seen as sort of very long-term goals. Do you think there's a possibility of kind of pulling it forward by being even more strategic?
Yeah, I mean, I think even if it's long-term, it's definitely worth the investment in thinking into how we build our middle class and raise the incomes of Detroiters, because as we grow Detroit, as I mentioned in the State of the City, it means nothing if Detroiters don't have access to it. And what we're seeing is, as we're trying to attract retailers and larger, retail brands in Detroit, they oftentimes look at demographics, income levels. When we're looking for bonding and credit rated agencies coming to look at our finances, they also look at the income levels, right, of Detroiters. So it's a major thing that I think we have to address in Detroit. And so we're trying our hardest to ensure that we're investing in people, we're building our middle class, we're expanding homeownership opportunities, and we're really looking at education in a different way that I don't think previous administrations have as well.
Well, and the absolutely sort of breathtaking announcement of creating a living wage for all city employees, that's almost 1,000 people who are going to see their incomes go up. And I thought your challenge to the rest of the community was really appropriate. All right, if the city can do it, certainly the rest of us can do it. We will try to do our part at Kresge. But it's a big, complicated community, and we all need to step up. One of the challenges of any mayor is trying to figure out what the relationship is with the educational system. Even if you have even if a mayor has a good working relationship with the superintendent has its own board, and it's really tough. And you talked a little bit about bus passes and out of school time, but are there other ways that you think that you as mayor can help sort of shape the educational environment of the city?
Yeah, and it has been a learning experience, some of the dynamics of, even with the bus route to the free bus transportation, we had to deal with the school board and understanding that dynamics. But what I do know ultimately is that Detroiters want a mayor that is more involved in education. And so we've been very strategic in our approach, after school programming, absenteeism, reducing absenteeism, and out of school time. Those are 3 areas that we believe we can be a greater partner, but also some of the social issues that parents face, as relates to why children are not going to school, whether it's housing, whether it's access to child support, whatever it may be, the city can be a greater partner in some of those social issues. And so we're figuring out more ways to be a better partner in that regard, because a lot of the issues that, families and children face go back to housing, poverty, education, access to jobs, things of that sort. So we're looking at ways to be a greater partner in that regard.
Well, you took the extraordinary step of creating an entire new office for poverty elimination.
Yes.
What kind of scope of authority will that office have? What are the kinds of things we might expect to see out of it?
So they're going to really push policies, one. And so right now we're looking at, RX Kids was the first major policy that came out of that. The living wage policy came out of that office. The child tax credit, which was a part of the tax return season that we actually launched through Detroit. But ensuring that people from homelessness to home ownership have the wraparound services to become self-sufficient. We want to implement a no wrong door policy approach. So when you call the city of Detroit for a service, we can connect you to the services that you need to be self-sufficient. We're also really looking at more outflow strategies from our homeless population to ensure that people are not in shelters and for too long, and so we're looking at ways to better improve our outflow strategy as well. But Dr. Luke Schaefer is the founder of the University of Michigan's Poverty Solutions, and if you know anything about that, there's tons of research, data, and policies around how to address the issue of poverty. So he's going to bring a wealth of experience to really help us address it from a programmatic standpoint and also a policy standpoint.
I'm smiling because I can't think in all of my career of a mayor doing this, of kind of reaching into academic lots of mayors I think have tried to corral academic expertise, but to actually take someone of his stature and push them right into the middle of the city's structure is really quite extraordinary. It speaks also to your emphasis on talent. I mean, you have very quickly assembled quite an extraordinary cast of characters.
Thank you. I mean, throughout the transition, we had thousands of people apply for jobs in Detroit, which again shows people desire and urgency to want to be a part of such a transformative time in Detroit. And one thing that I did learn from the previous administration, and I think why Duggan was so successful, was that he always had the best and the brightest around him. He knew that he couldn't do it by himself. And so we were very intentional about it, making sure that we explored, and we have a new COO in place, we have a new chief public health officer, and we're still looking to fill key positions to ensure we have the best and the brightest around us.
I remember talking to Mayor Duggan about this right after the bankruptcy, and I think at first it wasn't at all clear that people would come into a sort of a post-bankruptcy era. It's hard, right? And our press hadn't been terrific. But I think you're right. I mean, he got in cars and knocked on doors, and it sure seems like you're doing the same thing.
Same, exactly. We're bringing people from corporate America here. We're trying our hardest to recruit, and people want to be in Detroit. There's so much excitement, so much momentum, and to leave your mark and to be a part of the revitalization and growth of Detroit, I think people are very much so interested in.
Well, you can probably tell this story far better than I, but in the immediate aftermath of the bankruptcy, we were starting to get calls from all across the country saying, would you come talk to us about the Detroit experience? And I thought that would last maybe a year until, it was sort of old news. We still get those calls. People are, I think, just both curious and deeply almost awed by the extent to which we've been able to build across multiple platforms. Again, sort of the public, the private, the nonprofit, the civic. And my sense is that your talent base is going to be so clear about your agenda that you're going to get not Duggan's folks were great, but you're going to get a kind of person like Luke who really knows that neighborhoods are first and foremost, issues of family and kids are first and foremost, creating a wealth platform is first and foremost. I think it's going to probably look a little bit different.
Yeah.
Well, that's great.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier the federal environment. It's a tough one, and it's not just that our one-time funding is going away, but they're kind of leaving the building in terms of cities. How do you think the city is going to have to adapt? I mean, I suppose in every way, but.
Yeah, I mean, I think overall we've been doing good. We ensured that we have a new state governmental affairs leader, Fred Durhal. I'm consistently in Lansing building relationships with both sides of the aisle to ensure that our agenda touches everyone. And so we are being very strategic in that regard. My thing is I don't have to agree with everything, but we have to make sure that we're able to work across the aisle to deliver for Detroit. So we're strengthening our relationships with state leaders and ensuring that Detroit is on the agenda because, we impact the entire region. And so those conversations are forthcoming.
Yeah, my sense too is that local government at some level, just sort of not ideological. You're presented with 10,000 problems or challenges, and you just try to create solution sets for them. It's not red or blue. It's something quite different.
And I can tell you, I mean, property tax reform is one. I think everyone, no matter the background, right, has an understanding or a constituency that is impacted by the high cost of property taxes. So that is an area we've been able to find common ground on both sides of the aisle. And so we're trying to figure out where the common interests are, where we can align and actually get things done. It's a tough one, but I think there could be some movement in that regard. So,
and for folks who aren't from Detroit who are watching, is Detroit's property tax system sort of unlike what you would find in Columbus, Ohio, or Austin, Texas? It seems like it might be.
It is, and I think the millage rate, right? We have so many millages, I think over 80 mills compared to other cities. We have the highest in the state and almost the highest in the country. And so that is a huge barrier to development in Detroit, which is why we often have to see so many tax abatements and incentives for development projects to work. But it also is a barrier to everyday Detroiters who are just trying to buy homes and stay in their homes in our city. So it has been a huge deterrent overall, I think, to overall economic growth. And it is an issue that we have to continue to fight and address in our city.
The only other thought I had when you were saying that is that both the sort of the local environment being non-ideological and also having a really robust corporate sector. I mean, you came and spoke with the CEOs group. You have Mary Barr on one side and Roger Penske on another. I wonder if that, in some ways, isn't a little bit of insulation. This is a very robust, hardworking corporate community, and they're not going to get ideological on you either.
No, I completely agree, and that has been something that has been very encouraging to see firsthand. I witnessed it on the council for 12 years, but now in this position to see the dedication of the philanthropic sector, the private sector, who all are committed and invested in Detroit's growth, gives me the reassurance to know that, even in difficult moments, even with some of the federal difficulties that we're experiencing, we have a group and a community of people who are committed to Detroit's resurgence. So very, very thankful for the corporate, private sector, and philanthropic community as well.
I'll never forget in the sort of the pre-bankruptcy couple of years from 2008 to 12, when Mayor Bing just needed more police cars and more EMS vehicles. And Roger Penske put that together like in 2 days.
He did. He did.
Yeah, and whether it's on rail or the waterfront or anything. If there's this is not fair to ask, but if there's a single thing or two things that you might ask of a regional CEOs group, where would you prioritize, do you think, or is that too hard?
No, it's not. I mean, I think, infrastructure is really big in general. I'm going to always go back to just overall neighborhoods, investment in our neighborhoods. But I think connecting us from a regional standpoint has been a huge conversation for quite some time, and trying to figure out what that looks like from a regional perspective is important. But overall, I would say more investment in general into neighborhoods and neighborhood infrastructure.
Well, maybe the last question, if I might. You're clearly enormously upbeat and optimistic and inspiring about the city's future. But as we read newspaper headlines about all sorts of mischief, what do you say to Detroiters to help them understand that they're going to get through this?
Detroit has always gotten through. And that is the spirit of resiliency, of perseverance, of determination of Detroit. We fight. We never give up. And so I would just encourage Detroiters, one, to not sit back and allow some of the things that we're seeing to happen, especially if we feel as if it's unjust or not right. Because voting matters, speaking up and speaking truth to power matters. As we see, voting has consequences, and we can see it in some of the programs that are being cut, some of the things that are happening nationally. So definitely continue the grit, the fight. Things are going to get better, but we need all Detroiters to step up, to use their voice and to advocate for themselves and their communities and be a part in ensuring that Detroit continues to rise higher.
Oh, that's inspiring and maybe a wonderful place to leave it. Mayor Mary Sheffield, thank you very much for your time. It's an honor to have you here.
Glad to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
To Mayor Sheffield and Kresge President Rapson, thank you for that insightful conversation. Next week, Jamie and I will be back in the host chairs with the first of our 3 featured Detroit PathBreakers. You'll meet the one and only Orlando Bailey, Executive Director of Outlier Media, a newsroom dedicated to investigating and publishing the stories and information that Detroiters literally ask for.
And you'll also get to meet Caitlin Murphy, who's the executive director of the Live 6 Alliance. She's helping to transform the Livernois-McNichols neighborhood in Northwest Detroit.
That's right. And then we'll shoot across town and talk to Simone Segovac, project director at the Southwest Detroit Community Benefits Coalition. Simone helped secure the $48 million benefit package coming to the neighborhood that will soon be host to not one, but two international freight crossing bridges.
Like and subscribe to PathBreakers on YouTube and your favorite podcast platform to hear how these PathBreakers are getting it done. PathBreakers is produced by the Kresge Foundation. Founded in 1924 with the mission to promote human progress, Kresge today works to expand equity and opportunity in America's cities.
Learn about our grant-making and social investing work in Detroit, Memphis, New Orleans, Fresno, and cities across the U.S. at kresge.org. To hear more stories from the PathBreakers, be sure to subscribe to the show wherever you listen to podcasts.
Our host for this episode was Rip Rapson, president and CEO of the Kresge Foundation. Our producer, as always, is Juliette Heinley. Managing editor is Krista Yankee, with huge help from her Kresge colleagues, Maria DiLorenzo, Kate McLaughlin, Jordan Duckins, and of course, the one and only Tracey Pearson. The video interview with Mayor Sheffield was shot and produced by Mark Marks on location at the Marygrove Conservancy. Our director of photography was Rodney Johnson. Audio technician was Keith Skembry. Associate producer Bria Brown, and video editor Carmel Flanagan. The show art is by Alejandro Herrera. Logo animation by Colin Likes. Our social media mastermind is David Carrick.
And a special thank you on this episode to Kresge's Detroit program, including Wendy Lewis Jackson and Jonathan Way. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week.